All right, welcome to the first edition of the WMMA Panel Show with WMMA Now. I'm your host, Chuck Stevenson, and along with me is Drake Riggs of, where are you with now, Drake? MMA Mania?
Yes, that is correct, as well as the morning reporter for MMA Fighting. So, yeah.
Okay. And Charlie Jewett of sogo-kaku.com, a blog in Japan.
How's everything going?
Good, Charlie. How you doing this morning?
Doing
I know
good.
it's morning for you, so.
Yeah. Gotta love that time difference.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So I do have a list of topics I wanted to go over and talk about with you guys. Let me bring them back up here real quick. So first up, I want to go over, since we're covering the Asian scene, and we had a few Asian fighters on UFC last night, so we'll go over those first. First up, at featherweight, Josiane Nunes defeated Hong Kong's Ramona Pasquale via decision. What do you guys think about this one?
Interesting fight. I thought it was, pretty entertaining, fun to watch. Was very surprised that Nunes didn't get her out of there in the second round. Started really unloading the shots, but Ramona very tough on short notice. And I thought she looked good in the first round. I think there was an argument for her winning it. I didn't give it to her, but she definitely didn't win the fight. But again, short notice. So very excited to see her at bantamweight, where she intends to go after this. Same with Nunes. This fight was just like featherweight for the short notice. We're not building the division. Let's not get crazy there or anything. But solid performance from Nunes. But I think that maybe we should slow the hype a little bit on her. But still, looks good out there in these first two fights.
Charlie, did you get a chance to watch these last? I guess yesterday.
No, I did not. I read the results though. Is she the first female fighter from Hong Kong?
Yeah,
fighting UFC. That's why I'm always interested to see these like new trails, like the new Ham Sohis of the world, like representing their country and trying to see what after effects this will have if we see some more fighters to start rising up from Hong Kong as well. But no, I didn't get to see the fight. I just read the results.
Okay.
It sounded like Josiane's made quite the name for herself, beating bigger opponents.
When you're 5'2", and that's the average atomweight's height, yeah, you're mostly going to be talked about fighting bigger opponents, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think clearly Nunes had the speed advantage. My biggest problem with Pasquale was her complete lack of head movement. Personally, yeah. I think that's the number one thing she needs to work on is her defense. You can't just block punches with your face the whole fight.
Doesn't usually help.
No.
I mean, you can, but
right.
And while she hasn't been there, I think in about at least a year, a number of people are talking that she was part of the UFC Academy program in Shanghai, the Shanghai Performance Institute, and that program is not doing so well in the UFC, those fighters.
Well, I mean, the UFC has done a lot of initiatives to try to create a strong Chinese fighter. I remember that you would fly certain fighters out to the U.S. to train them and do stuff like that. But outside of a couple of the fighters that are kind of independently successful, I don't think the UFC has had success kind of developing their own talent. Weili Zhang was Road FC, then she was kind of self-made. The UFC didn't have a lot to do with that.
Yeah. Same with Xiaonan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can't just hurry up. And to me, the Academy program, I kind of get what they're doing, but it seems like they're just trying to rush things along. You can't just rush an MMA scene into being world level. It has to grow organically.
Well, I mean, if we really look at it, though, not a lot of the fighters have come over yet. They've kind of taken their time with that. I mean, Liang Na, probably the most recent. I mean, if we're not counting Ramona, I guess we should count Ramona. But Yeah, but there's the Contender Series that they wanted to do. They've kind of tried, but I don't think, let's say it's been rushed in that regard. But yeah, they're definitely trying to develop it over there.
Yeah, I'm more interested, as Drake was saying, in the this kind of like long fabled Contender Series keeps getting pushed back because of this pandemic and everything. So I would expect better results from that. It'd be kind of interesting to see what kind of talent they attract and who they put on it.
Yeah. So supposedly it's happening this year. So the Contender Series Asia, or at least they're going to just mix in all the fighters they had planned.
Yeah, that's what I remember seeing. I forget who it was, but they'd been working at the PI for a while. I could have swore that she had a fight on, I don't know if it was the past Contender Series, if that was the case, then it didn't happen. But I remember seeing news about something like that, or a signing. I don't know. It was a couple months ago, but we'll see.
Good old rumor.
That's just been a big old mess since the pandemic started.
Pretty much the state of the sport.
Right.
Then up on the main card at flyweight, Priscilla Cachuela defeated Jeon Kim via decision in what some people are calling the biggest robbery of 2022. Now, I'm
hilarious.
Not normally one to call fight like close decisions robberies, but I thought this was pretty bad.
I mean, I thought Kim won, but I don't know. I feel like it wasn't that crazy of a robbery or a decision. Like, I think it was fairly clear that Kim won. And I mean, the stats will obviously show what she almost outstruck her by 100 strikes. It was like 85 or it was a good amount, but
close to like 2-1 pretty much.
Right. I mean, I feel like that doesn't always tell the whole story because it is about, doing damage and being effective that way, which she was, don't get me wrong. And I mean, the damage was evident on their faces and what have you, but right there. I mean, pretty wild looking. It wasn't, I don't agree with it, obviously, but I feel like it wasn't terrible. The most frustrating thing to me about this entire fight, and I'll definitely talk more about this tomorrow on my show, but like the fact that we know exactly how to beat Priscilla Cachuela at this point, and it's just take her down because her takedown defense is non-existent. And yes, Kim is primarily a striker, but we know, like, if you pay any attention to Priscilla's fights and her fighting style, which she got what she wanted in this one, and it luckily paid off and she got the win, but it's just very frustrating to see, Kim not even try to take it to the ground when she could have won easily that way. So I feel like she beat herself in that regard, but it was fun and crazy while it lasted. So there's that, I guess.
I watched it, and when I'm scoring the fight, like if I'm tweeting live or something, like I try to put myself in the judge's shoes. I'm thinking, okay, what do these morons in Vegas love to score? Oh, they love aggression. They love big strikes. They don't care like about actual technique or anything. So I'm like, well, Cachuela's coming forward and she's swinging wildly and she might be missing, but she's not missing by too much. And Kim is throwing second. And I'm like, well, so I think I ended up giving Cachuela the first round and then definitely the third in my mind. So that's in the judge's shoes. If I were scoring it, like if I were to score it properly, I probably would have given it 2-1, like first and second to Kim and third to Cachuela.
Yeah, I actually went first and third for Kim because obviously that third round was just, Cachuela in her face, pedal to the metal. But I still think that, and at the beginning too, like it's so easy, I think, for people to forget, especially in a fight like that where it's kind of crazy. In that round particular, they forget what happened at the beginning of the round, and Kim actually like stunned her pretty good at the beginning of that round. And even though she was backed up, was still outside of some of those elbows, obviously, as she got the cut. As you can see, the bandages there. I still thought she was landing better. It was close, but I thought she won the third round. Even I know that, but you showed the scorecards. Even Marcel gave her all three. So,
I mean, at this point, do you feel like Kim needs to change her strategy up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it's not working. Like she's lost a bunch of decisions. She's got some split decisions. Like her strategy isn't convincing the judges she's winning. She needs to do something to change something up.
MMA judges do not recognize or reward counter strikers. So why are you trying to be a counter striker? Also, if you have at least a 5-inch reach advantage over every opponent you face, and usually it's more than that, why aren't you using it to your advantage? Because if you're looking to counter, you got to let your opponents get close, so then you're not even using the reach. I just don't understand it.
If you're going to be a counter striker, you have to be able to finish them because you can't afford to retreat and counter punch and not severely damage your opponent in a lot of these judges' eyes. They always, I mean, I feel like they're obsessed with the aggressive fighter, whether they're receiving damage or not.
Yeah, you just unless you're Valentina Shevchenko, who usually ends up turning it up eventually to finish, you can't be a counter striker in MMA.
Yeah,
at least not in the women's divisions at the lower levels.
Well, you got to be able to hurt. You have to be able to hurt your opponent. You have to make the counters effective.
Yeah,
because like even in the second round, Cachuela stunned Kim a little bit, and then Kim had Cachuela visibly stunned, like she literally stopped and walked back into the cage, and Kim just stood there and didn't take advantage. Just like, now is the time to go forward.
her fight IQ just isn't that great, unfortunately.
No, she just, and that's something they mentioned on over at Bloody Elbow on the MMA Vivisection. She does not make in-fight adjustments at all. She fights to her style, and that's it.
I mean, that's what I was talking about. Not a single takedown in this fight from her. Cachuela was actually the one, of course, at the end of the first round to throw one out there, and she got it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then you got Adelaide Bird and Sal D'Amato judging that. You know that's automatic win the round.
Rolling the dice. Yeah, both fighters rolling the dice on that one.
All right.
What's worse, those judges are doing a Texas fight?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I love how when a fight happens in Texas, you have to like take that into consideration. You're like, ooh, it's Texas judges. Who won?
Yeah. They know that in boxing too. It's the same way. All right. So moving along, we got Deep Jewels on March 12th in Tokyo, and I think the list of fighters is pretty interesting myself. I mean,
it's a great card. I think it's probably the best Deep Jewels card in Deep Jewels history. The only cards that rival it are like some of the earlier Jewels cards back before it became Deep Jewels. This card, like when you look at it, you forget that certain fighters are on it. You're like, oh, that's right. Mizuki Future is on this card. Like, normally they would try to have her headline something, and she's been buried on the bottom of this card.
Yeah, she's
opening it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She's the opener against Reyna Kobayashi. It's like, are they possibly done with Furuse, or
she's had a rough stretch recently? So.
I don't think they're done with her because she moves tickets. She was on the same Abima TV show that Itsuki Hirata was on, and it's the show that like made Itsuki Hirata really popular. It's where she won the one championship contract, and she beat Furuse in the finals. And because of that show, Furuse has like a pretty loyal fan base. So I think as long as she keeps selling tickets, she'll be on Deep Jewels cards. Plus, I think her husband is a deep fighter, so kind of family affair.
Still very young. So
last year was kind of crazy. Mizuki Future had a kid and then returned to action like a couple months later.
Yeah, that was right after the Kana fight, right?
Yeah, she's so small that I feel like she should really stick to microweight, which is what she's doing, I think, for this fight, because she's just way too small for atom weight.
Yeah, I think this is a microweight. I thought so too. Like, I'm thinking she doesn't do good at atom weight, and she was actually doing pretty good at microweight. So,
well, I mean, you remember like her Rising fight, Kana Asakura just bullied her, like just threw her to the ground and didn't let her up. And then Nisei bullied her too. Like these bigger girls are just able to bully her.
And Nisei's a microweight too, so
yeah.
But she got finished by Murakami, didn't she?
Well, Murakami is a stud. I think Murakami is like She got her black belt faster than any other woman in Japanese history. So
Oh wow.
she's a jiu-jitsu stud.
Yeah, I'm definitely very high on Aya.
And we got Yuko, who's a longtime veteran and finally returned into Deep, or she just returned to Deep already. And then Manhoof Sade, who is like a blast from the past. I had to like look
Almost
up
50.
the last time she fought.
You see this every once in a while in Deep or Deep Jewels, like when MMA gets popular again in Japan, and like the cycles it goes through. Some of these older fighters make comebacks, and yeah, I'm excited for this. I mean, Manhoof she was a pretty solid puncher back in her day, and Kiryu had a successful return herself, so kind of fun to see the veterans going at it.
She's 49 years old. That makes her the second oldest active fighter in Deep Jewels.
Behind
Tamada
Tamada.
the first.
Yeah, behind Tamada, who's literally old enough to be some of the other fighters' grandmother.
I just remember when she fought for Invicta FC, they didn't show her age in the infographic, and I'm like, it's not a bad. It's a bad sign.
I've been around the block.
This is one I'm really interested in. 49 kilograms. Picaro Alno taking on Moeri Suda. I think the winner of this one might end up getting picked up by Ryzen.
Well, I think Drake probably can speak about this as well. Sakakibara has hinted that Rising is interested in a super atomweight tournament this year. And you'll notice that all of the atomweights on this card are at 49 kilo, not the traditional 48 kilo. So I think any of the atomweights on this card have a standout performance, and you can expect to see them in Rising in the near future. And I mean, Hikaru Ano's got a solid wrestling background, but promoting wise, her boyfriend is Shuto Watanabe, and she's been featured heavily in some of the promotional materials that Rising has made. But on another side note, Moeri Suda is super young. I think she's got to be like 18. And I know her record's 4-2, but I think those 4 wins are all in a row. She really turned things around and is kind of like a little jiu-jitsu ace. And she submitted Edu Takabayashi in a very super impressive performance where she was all over Edu and never gave her an inch to start up her striking or anything in the fight. And she's in Osaka, and I actually saw that she was training with Hanako Sawa for this fight. So maybe we can see her wrestling game improve a little bit as well. But she's a super hot prospect, and Rising has shown that they kind of like the young, like still in school angle. That's how Kana Asakura came in. That's how they brought Sakura and Edu Takabayashi in. So maybe we'll see a similar game plan for them promoting someone like Moeri Suda.
Any excuse to get them in their school outfit, seems like.
Plus, Rising loves Osaka. They do a ton of Osaka shows, and having another Osaka native on a card will help them sell tickets.
According to Topology, Moeri Suda is 17, and
she's super young.
Yeah, she lost her first 2, but then won the next 4. So and a pair of decisions and a pair of arm bars.
Yeah, she's made a lot of growth. I've been impressed by her recent performances.
Yeah.
But that's not to dismiss Alno. Alno is a stud too, and Alno probably has the second best wrestling on this card, which isn't saying much because the first place one, which is saying a lot considering the first place one was an Olympic hopeful.
I just feel like with Aono, I don't know if she's developing really.
Yeah, I agree. She seems to kind of be stuck in the wrestling angle. Hasn't really developed any other skills. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Because I know she trains with like Kana Watanabe and she trains with Seika Izawa, who are both studs.
Yeah, you would think that would help.
Yeah. Let's see if any of that has helped rub off. And I know that she really wants to fight for Ryzen, and Shuto Watanabe really wants her to fight for Ryzen. So I expect her to try to make a statement in this fight to try to get the attention, because there's so many atomweights on this card. If she wants to get in Rising, she's going to have to do something drastic, and that's going to have to be like a finish or something super dominant.
Yeah, my thoughts on Alno, it seems like she's just stagnated. Like she's never gotten past the I'm a wrestler, so that's what I'm going to do. And she hasn't moved into that I'm also a mixed martial artist phase.
Well,
I mean, she keeps getting caught in submissions. I think most of her losses are by submission, I think.
She's just too busy raising their army of cats and rabbits and playing Pokemon Go. I mean, she's like level 50 at Pokemon Go.
Can you blame her?
Exactly.
Level 50, though, that's pretty wild.
That is like every time they promote them, I'm like, what is their lifestyle like? Shuto Watanabe is just like eating ice cream in a room filled with cats and rabbits that Alno is taking care of. I'm like, this is the reality show I want on Netflix.
Japanese MMA stars' personal lives coming soon to Netflix. I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anything Japan does well on Netflix. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of a big tell for Alno to see. It's like a big deal for her. If she loses, she falls to 8-6, and maybe Rising is off the cards in the future.
Yeah, I mean, for Suda, it'd be the biggest win on her record so far. But also, if she loses, it's just, well, she lost one, but she's only 17, so.
Right.
Yeah, Suda's got nothing to lose going into this, which is the great position to be in.
Next up, we got the former strawweight champ moving down to super atomweight. Miki Motono taking on Mizuki Nisei Oshiro, who's coming off of her first win in Rising.
Questionable too. I'm not. I could have seen a case for Koga in that one.
I think she got the hometown rub being on Okinawa.
Right.
So a little bit. I mean, it was a close fight, but
yeah, good fight.
Well, this is like one of those fights where I like to my bias is that Motono Miki has a judo background from when she's like 3 years old. And Nisei doesn't have that kind of background. Nisei just kind of got into martial arts because she was a fan later in life. And in my experience, those fighters that have just the years and years of either wrestling or judo experience just are a different level of athlete. And I know that Miki Motono is 6-3, but 2 of those losses are to Seika Izawa, who might be the hottest new best fighter to be rising in Japan right now. So you have to take those losses with a grain of salt. And Motono Miki also, it's kind of interesting. Like the rising effect is so strong. I remember 10 years ago, every fighter, I want to fight in the UFC. I want to fight for Bellator. Now they all want to fight for Rising. And she dropped weight because Sayaki said, you're not going to get into Rising at 52 kilo. You have to go down to 48 kilo. She's dropped down. And if you follow her on social media, you know that she's like Reyna's shadow. They go on vacations and travel together, and they train together all the time. But I mean, she is such a solid judoka. She was first introduced to me as like little Hamasaki. She's like a little copy of what Hamasaki was at her age. And I just see Motono. I just see same costume in the beginning, at least. But I just don't see anything that Nisei is better at than Motono. And I see Motono being able to get it to the ground when she wants to. What do you think, Drake?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Honestly, have never been too impressed with Nisei outside of probably the Shinashi win, which of course, but yeah, I think you summed that up pretty well. And this will be Motono's debut at this weight, right?
Yes, it will.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see.
Motono she was very muscular for 52 kilo. So I'm kind of interested to see what she looks like at 48. And not to do a cop out, but in her second Seika Izawa fight, the fight actually got delayed because of a knee injury she had. And if you watch their second fight, her leg is just taped like a Sakuraba fight. And I think she went into the fight with I'm not saying with a significant injury still, because I don't think 1 month is enough time for a knee injury to heal. But her leg looks fine now. I think she actually had surgery. Don't quote me on that, but I did interview her after her last fight. She's no longer taping her legs, so I think she should be back at 100%. And to Drake's point, Nisei has always kind of done her best against much smaller opponents. Like her big wins are over Satoko Shinashi and Mizuki Future, which she's kind of able to bully. I don't see her being able to bully Miki Motono.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the
Nice.
only fighter I've ever seen with more tape on in the ring is probably Emi Fujino, who literally has her foot taped up, like both feet taped up, and it's like, what?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Remember, like,
Kitaoka has a lot too.
well, Hamasaki in her early Invicta days, before I think the Kansas City Athletic actually said they wouldn't let her tape her legs, so she had to get knee surgery. I mean, Hamasaki is like when she fought, I think, Lacey Shuckman, she looked like Sakuraba too.
He's practically wearing like the under the spats or whatever.
He almost looks like Aoki wearing his little long
right,
pants.
the tights. Yeah.
I think, I think this is like Miki Motono's fight to lose.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that Nisei has going for her is like she's always aggressive.
Yeah.
Unless she knows she's like way behind in a fight, and then she just starts kind of goofing around.
Ready to pair.
And I noticed that
Yeah.
in the second.
Powering off.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because Nisei is really aggressive, but it has bitten her in the butt before.
Mm-hmm.
And she fought in the atomweight tournament and got absolutely smashed by Hikaru Aono. Like, it was like less than 2 minutes in the first round. Hikaru Aono just absolutely dominated her. And Nisei, it just shows like a giant hole in her ground game. And I think Miki Motono can exploit the same hole.
Hikaru Alno. Let's see. Let's see the timing on that one.
I just remember it being like very impressive because I thought that, Aono has a good chance to win the tournament. She absolutely destroyed her first fight and is going into the finals super fresh.
Right.
I pulled it up. It's 1:39.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Then looks like the main non-Grand Prix fight is going to be Saori Oshima, who's another of the hidden gems of Deep Jewels from last year, taking on Hime, who's moving down from strawweight again and just faced Miki Motono at strawweight. So
She did. I have no idea what to think of this fight because it's kind of an interesting fight because Hime, I think, made her first fight against Kate Lotus at like 125, and Oshima is a natural 44, like she's a natural microweight. So it's like this big girl, almost every fight has dropped down a weight class. So I'm kind of interested to see what the size disparity is between them. But Hime is a former professional basketball player, and while not having the background necessarily like in the Motono fight and other fights, you can tell she's an athlete. She moves quite well, and she's fast. But Oshima has just such a solid judo background that if the way that Oshima loses is just because she's so short. If Hime is able to take advantage of a height advantage and just keep it a striking match, that's her chance to win. Where if Oshima can get it down, that's her chance to win. Because Miki Motono got Hime down and almost submitted her in the first round of their fight. So she can be taken down, but she's just so athletic, she's usually able to escape situations. So it's hard to tell.
yeah, I'm glad you said you didn't know what to make of this fight because I have no idea what to make of it either.
I'm like, is Hime going to be a microweight next? Like, is she just going to keep dropping divisions? Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what to make. I know that she trains at Miwi, I think. No, she doesn't train at Miwi. No, she doesn't. I'm sorry, that's a mistake of mine. But she's this, and she looked good in her Miki Motono fight. I mean, Miki Motono dominated her, but she never got overwhelmed. She never let it fluster her, and she remained composed when she was in bad situations. But you have to favor Oshima though, just because of recent results.
Yeah, gotta give the recency bias to Oshima because I mean,
But
she's used to fighting bigger opponents. She's tiny, so
Oshima has struggled though with like people that strike from the outside. If you get someone that kind of copies like a Siwoo Park, because Siwoo Park was winning their second fight, she got submitted because she blasted Saori Oshima and followed her down. Yeah, so I mean, the way to beat her is to not engage in the judo and take advantage of the fact that she's absolutely tiny.
Okay. So moving along, we got the flyweight Grand Prix, which kind of came out of nowhere because I mean I knew Deep Jewels was slowly building their flyweight division, which was kind of odd because at the same time they're like telling the few strawweights they have, hey, don't stick around.
Well, the difference is that they probably can't expect a lot of these girls to drop to atomweight. And also, I mean, they have some potential big stars in the division.
Hmm.
And if those stars, I mean, if Rising was interested, I mean, if they could get Rinnekai to fight for them, they'd absolutely have that happen. So, I mean, they wouldn't make her drop down.
That's not happening anytime soon, trust me.
Oh, no. Rinnekai's I mean, we could talk about the difficulties in that. I mean, she went off on Twitter again today, by the way. So.
I'm surprised she's even getting in Deep Jewels again, honestly.
It just shows, in my opinion, that Sayaki is probably like the coolest. By that, I mean the most easygoing promoter in Japan, who doesn't care what a fighter says about him repeatedly for years. When they finally come around, he's like, sure, I'll have you in my tournament. But she's burned so many bridges. You got to think the Pancrase just like every time they hear her name throws up a little bit.
Like, they just get a shudder. Like even every time a beetle flies by, they just. Ugh.
I mean, this is for another argument, but I might say that Rinnekai has wasted her potential more than any other fighter I've ever followed.
I'd say so.
I mean, since 2016, she's fought in three times. It's like insanely low number.
Yeah.
I always think of Shigeru Seki. He's kind of like the Scott Coker of Japan, in that he will work with anybody. Like, oh, no one else wants to work with you? Oh, come to Bellator. I'll work with you.
Well, he's
you have
like
a name?
the most.
Yeah, I'll work with you. I'll sign you. I'm surprised
he's the most easygoing promoter. Like, he goes up and like goes in the ring in a suit, and then when you turn around, he's wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt, walking around. Like, he just doesn't take himself too seriously. I mean, wasn't he? He was the former PR guy from Pride, so I mean, he's seen big stars and he knows how to deal with these people. Plus, I mean, it's a brilliant move on his part. Bringing her into the tournament is going to bring so much more attention to it that just sucking up his ego and getting her into it was a great move.
Yeah, it's a big problem with a lot of MMA promoters is they think they're like the star of the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the first bout that was decided was Hanano Kagaya taking on TA.
Mm-hmm. Got Tia from AACC, former soldier. She actually retired from her soldiering career to pursue a career in MMA. And she's kind of had mixed results, but that's, according to her, probably just because Deep had her bouncing around and fighting in a bunch of different weight classes.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys watch on YouTube, her last fight against King Reyna just absolutely sucker punched the crap out of her. Like, they went out to touch gloves, and instead of touching gloves, King Reyna just nailed her with an overhand right.
And then abused her immediately.
Absolutely abused her. So, yeah, I spoke to her afterwards. I was like, "Are you gonna touch gloves again?" like, oh my god. So yeah, King Reyna not being the most honorable fighter, but hey, she's a heel character, so it's kind of in character for her own personality.
I always think if the ref doesn't bring you into the center to touch gloves before the fight, then don't touch gloves. They say fight, you're supposed to be in fight mode. But so many fighters
fighting a heel.
Like they're literally asking each other before the fight, "Are we going to touch gloves?" And it's like, no. He says fight. Get into fight mode.
Well, I think King Reyna was just like, oh, this girl's a new up and comer. She's not going to see this coming. I'm just going to. And King Reyna at that point couldn't afford another loss on her record. So she's like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to win.
I don't think she needed to even do that to win, but yes.
Yeah. Dude, this was
a Nadia Kasim, except it actually worked for King Reyna.
Kind of like I said in the Miki Matano fight. This like a lot of these fighters that started fighting, they have like no background in any combat sport. You kind of like see like a hard ceiling on how good you think they're going to get, and that's kind of how I feel about this fight, personal.
We got an interesting question here. I know nothing about this. Says organically powered life says King Reyna has all kinds of issues. Will she still get fights with her AV scandal? Please tell me she didn't make a sex tape.
So if you're talking, I mean, I don't want to go into too many details. Those videos are old. Like, that's not new news. Like, those came out years ago, and she's very close with Deep, like extremely close. Like, if you go to a Deep or a Deep Jewels show, King Reyna's working there. She cleans stuff up. I mean, I remember I took pictures. She was sanitizing the ring. She's very close with Deep and Deep Jewels, and they're not. Who cares? They don't care that she did that. She'll keep fighting for them.
Yeah.
Plus, she has a huge following. When she fights, she brings a unique fan base. She brings fans that wouldn't normally be at the show, which makes her an attractive person for any card. She kind of has like a similar fan base to Aoi Kuriyama, where like a lot of the bad boys, like the street guys or like gangsters or tough people, like to come watch King Reyna fight.
See, I would think she kind of pulls in like the more pro wrestling style market with her personality
as well. I mean, before the pandemic, she promoted herself very well. She would have like giant barbecue events where people could come and they'd all like barbecue in a park and they could take pictures with her and stuff. So she's been promoting herself, and those videos were made a long time ago, and I don't think they'll. I mean, Hiroko was a dominatrix, and she fought for Deep. So I don't think Deep has any qualms for who they have fighting for them.
Yeah, literal professional, paid by the hour dominatrix.
Yeah.
Big
and
woman.
I think this is the dark horse here. Hanako Sawa taking on Aoi Kuriyama. Who?
Yeah, they were the unlucky ones because they actually trained together, and there were no fights left to make. So now they're stuck fighting each other.
Oh, so does Hanako train out of a smoker gym?
No, she's as the Japanese like to say, she's free. So she just trains, but she's in Osaka, and there's not that many girls in Osaka. So there's pictures of Kuriyama and Moedi Soda training together with Hanako, and I think Hanako actually trains at one of the Pancrase gyms down there. But they've trained together, and the difference in this fight, I mean, Drake can speak about this. I think Smoker's gym's greatest weakness, hint, hint, Hagiwara, is that they have like the worst takedown defense of almost any fighters I've ever seen. And
he's gotten a little better, though.
He's gotten a little better. He took down Rin Horomoto, which whatever that means.
Right.
But Hanako is just such a high-level wrestler, and she's still so young. It's not like Miyu Yamamoto that came over to the sport in her 40s. I mean, Hanako's in her early 20s, absolute powerhouse wrestler. And when you saw her in her debut, I mean, she has the physique of a wrestler. Like, this is someone who's been training her entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hanako, I think, is definitely the dark horse, but there's still so much that we need to see from her in MMA, clearly. So like when it comes,
only had one fight, so sorry.
Just the one. But when it comes to this tournament overall, though, I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, Sugiyama and Rin Nakai is what we're going to get. The experience is just so drastically different for it compared to everyone else.
I agree. Like, I think it's worth mentioning that Kuriyama has faced Sugiyama, and lost to Sugiyama in fairly dominant fashion. Like, there was no point where Kuriyama was winning that fight. And Kuriyama is kind of like an aggressive striker, but I wouldn't say she's necessarily good at it. And she has very little grappling skills. And Sawa, to echo what Drake said, we know her wrestling's top notch, but that's about all we know.
Yeah. So we have one of the two favorites in the Grand Prix, Shizuka Sugiyama taking on Miko Nirvana. And this is like about as big of an experiential difference as you can get.
Interesting fight, because this was the first fight that was decided. When they were doing the random draw, Sugiyama elected to fight Nirvana. And I actually was speaking to Yukari Nabe about it, and she says that Sugiyama picked the fight because she thinks it'll be the most exciting. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think that Sugiyama was very seriously thinking about who she could fight and who she'd have a good chance against. And let's just be clear, absolutely love Nirvana. Nirvana has such an emotion, like it's such an interesting background / gimmick as a fighter. She comes from Ibaraki Ken. She started training under Tatsuya Kawajiri, and then to pursue her MMA career, she moved to Tokyo, where she now works at a bar where all the girls are bodybuilders, and they all like flex and drink protein shakes. So it's absolutely hilarious. I think Rin Nakai's autograph is on the wall. So it is a hilarious restaurant that if you're ever in Tokyo, I absolutely recommend going to. And Nirvana
Sounds wonderful.
yeah, right. Nirvana's like super aggressive. She comes forward with her strikes. She also trains with Imanari outside of AACC, so people are kind of afraid of her going for ankle locks and foot locks and things, but I don't think Sugiyama has too much to worry about. And I even spoke to Nirvana ahead of this, and she said, even she says like she thinks it might be too early for her to be in the tournament, but she's looking forward to it as a good chance to kind of measure how far she's come along. And so I think she's very energetic, very positive going into this. But I mean, come on, Sugiyama, almost 30 professional fights, is one of the favorites to win the tournament.
It still just absolutely blows my mind how, the Bellator UFC haven't even tried to get her.
Well, I remember when the UFC came to Japan and they made like a big push for it.
I remember we were talking about this. You mentioned the thing she did, right? Yeah.
She worked for the UFC. It was her and another American girl living in Tokyo. They had her like going around doing promotional videos and the such, because I believe her husband was fighting for the UFC at the time.
Right.
And I was like, what? Like, you guys not know that she's a mixed martial artist? Like,
and
why
she
are
knows
you not
English
putting her
too,
on this card?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not putting her on this card? She has everything that you guys want in a fighter. She's incredibly marketable, and she's a good fighter. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But, also kind of funny is that Sugiyama's kind of started some shit talking where she on Twitter, everyone criticizes Rin Nakai for her relationship with her coach Wild Usami, and she made some comment about like cleaning the parasites off the shrimp with salt, and with a reference to getting Usami to leave Rin Nakai alone, and Rin Nakai absolutely exploded. It's been like tweeting about it nonstop. So she did a very good job of stirring the pot.
Started tweeting about it.
Oh yeah, well,
basically,
we all know that.
Yeah. Shizuka wouldn't bite on that when I mentioned it to her when I spoke to her on last episode of Broaden Horizon. Shameless plug, go check that out.
Yeah.
But
she deleted the tweet, but damage already done. Damage is already done.
That's not too difficult.
No.
Sugiyama has a big YouTube channel too, I think.
Yeah, very popular.
She has a very big YouTube channel. As far Japanese fighter YouTube channels, with 2 exceptions, are nowhere near the size of like popular YouTubers in the US. But as far as Japan goes, she has one of the more popular YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And I mean, she has a pretty good relationship with, it looks like, the Asakura brothers. So she appears in their videos from time to time.
So in the final,
I think fight side wise, Sugiyama's strongest point is that she's actually, a lot of times you see the Japanese fighters just always say like "Gambarimasu," like "I'm gonna do my best," whereas like Sugiyama doesn't seem to have qualms showing her personality, and she's kind of like a kooky, funny person, so it makes her stick out that she's willing to show that aspect of her personality.
she always does the K pose because of
which is funny. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. She trains at Miwi, and there are 2 Miwi fighters in the tournament. Shoko Fujita is in the we're facing Rin Nakai and herself, and so Sugiyama trains with Yukari Nabe, who isn't in the tournament because she's sick, and Yukari Nabe fought Miko Nirvana and beat her, and Shizuka Sugiyama fought Yukari Nabe and beat her, and now they train together. So if you're doing like a weird broken MMA math thing, you can start adding those things together. But it is worth noting that Miko Nirvana has fought Shoko Fujita. Like, there's so much like interconnectedness going on in all these fights. Nirvana fought Shoko Fujita twice and beat her twice. So she has beaten some of the fighters in the tournament as well.
Yeah. So it moves us to the final quarterfinal. Everyone's favorite fetish queen, Rin Nakai, taking on Shoko Fujita. And I felt bad for Fujita because she's shown some promise in her fights so far.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, Rin Nakai picked a fighter. It's like, well, probably it for her in this Grand Prix.
For those that don't know, Fujita's brother is a popular fighter in Japan. I think he actually did the commentary on the last Deep card because they were like, Shoko's brother. His first name escapes me. Her brother is a popular fighter as well. But I think I believe she has a karate background. And she actually competed on like the collegiate and higher level karate. So she tends to have more of a striking style.
Yeah.
But Rin Nakai, never been finished to strikes, has never taken a lot of damage from strikes. She kind of has this awkward style. I always remember that gif that goes around where she like throws the front kick that's like 10 feet away from her opponent. She tends to stay like she's very aware of her height limitations. So she tends to stay very far away from her opponents until she goes in.
Trailblazer.
She was a trailblazer, okay? Michelle Watterson and Macy Barber have picked up the air kicking thing. And
the Rin Nakai one's so great. It's like so far away from anybody. But I was actually doing some reading on Rin Nakai today because she's like, I've tried to interview her so many times. It's just impossible. You send them questions and they're like, okay, well, what kind of questions do you want to ask? And I'm like, oh, let's talk about her judo career. And she's like, I don't want to talk about my judo career. Okay. Let's talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. All right. Thanks for the time.
Strange. So strange.
Thanks for the wonderful time. But for those that
with
don't
those people,
know,
you have to like find out what they like and start talking to them about things that they like, and then sometimes they'll open up and then they'll start talking about what you want. So ask her about like Beatles or something.
Let's talk about weird Beetle naked videos while making strawberry pie. She also sells bugs, so I mean maybe we can talk about bugs, I guess. But yeah, I have no idea. And she seems obsessed with like growing mushrooms recently. But for those, so we know that Fujita's got a karate background. Rin Nakai was like extremely high ranked judoka. She was been doing judo since she was 3 and badly injured her knee in her first year of university, and it ended her judo career. But before that, she was like the 5th, or I think she was the 3rd ranked for her division in Japan and was going for the Olympics. Panchamina does have a popular YouTube channel. She actually has, I think I wrote an article about, she has the biggest YouTube channel in Japan now as far as the women go. But Kana Asakura still generates more views on other people's channels. Read into that as you will. But yeah, Rin Nakai, though, super high level judoka and physically so strong. And her finish rate, she probably has to have the highest finish rate going into this tournament of all the fighters. I think she has like a 66% finish rate, broken down perfectly even in TKOs and submissions. So, I mean, if she gets you down, she's just going to smash you with ground and pound, or she's going to submit you. Plus, don't forget, she choked out Kanako Murata. So, I mean, she's fought some legitimate fighters.
Oh, come on.
Fujita is the one that, to me, is most obviously going to get smashed in this tournament.
Yeah, I felt bad for her.
I think only factor that I can think of is Rin Nakai's giant inactivity. Like, unless something has happened since we've last seen her fight, when it wasn't a weird mixed rules exhibition match for heat up in Nagoya.
What a career. She's
oh my
just
God.
Something else.
You got to love a fighter that's fought 2 or 3 times in 2016 tweeting Dana White. Come on, give me another shot. I know I was really difficult the first time, but you should bring me in. I know I demanded a 2-fight contract, which you never do.
And I didn't win.
I heard some crazy rumor that she won't. One of the reasons she doesn't take a lot of these fights is because she refuses to commit in case the UFC calls her to step in last minute. And I want to be like, it's been a while. I don't think they're going to call.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That would not surprise me if that was true.
So that brings me to first discussion question. Okay, so is Rin Nakai the rightful favorite in spite of inactivity? Because I'm thinking, I'm thinking, well, Sugiyama, while it hasn't been like the most active fighter,
Yeah,
is
more-
also
more
like,
active.
almost.
very-
She's been almost as inactive as Rin Nakai.
right, but she has had a couple fights and
Mhm.
has the same amount of experience. I mean, they're clearly the two favorites.
Yeah.
They're the two favorites. I think it's hard to not make Rin Nakai the favorite. I mean, Rin Nakai's never been finished. And outside of the UFC, she's dominated every one of her performances except for the first Danielle West fight, which was kind of a controversy. But then in the rematch, she kind of reasserted herself. But
Honey
she's
Badger.
she's been fighting for so long too. She's been fighting since she was 19. She's 35 now. I mean, she just has such a giant experience edge going into this, and she's such a finisher, which I think tournaments tend to favor finishers.
Yeah. I mean, the less damage you can take is always going to be helpful. Less time overall.
I know that people are going to hate you bringing it up. I know Sugiyama I thought it was a bad stoppage personally, but she got knocked out by Watanabe Kana pretty quickly. I thought it was kind of the ref jumped in way too quickly, but she
Jumped in
has
from across the
shown-
ring to stop it. Like, no.
But I just say that Sugiyama has been hurt by strikes and fights before by people that aren't strikers.
I think Charlie can attest to this based on what people talk about in Japan, is that a lot of Nakai's behavior is attributable to the people around her.
Yeah, that's that would be the rumor. She would say
Her
it's not the case.
Manager
Or he would
slash
say that's not the
husband
case.
slash not husband.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, without saying anything, like in my opinion, I'll just tell you a story where the reason she no longer fights for Pancrase is because she did the weigh-in in some crazy outfit, like she always does, and claims that she got sick because it was cold and Pancrase didn't have like a warm dressing room for her. And so she got mad at them and just quit. And it's kind of insane logic to be like, oh, you guys don't keep these rooms warm enough. I'd be like, well, I mean, even if that was their job, do they know that you're going to come out wearing some crazy bunny rabbit thong outfit? Like,
They should have known.
they have to anticipate everything I'm going to do. But yeah. So, I mean, she's known for kind of having insane demands, and it's, I think, ruined her career. She constantly on her blog is talking about how she has money problems and all this. And the clear answer to all of these problems is, oh, I mean, you are a professional fighter. I guess if you fought, you would make money.
That's what drives me nuts about fighters who just aren't active. It's like, you're a fighter. You're only going to make money when you're fighting. So why aren't you fighting? Like, you're
Unless
not.
you have some sweet sponsorship deal. But I mean,
Right. I mean, unless you've got like a sweet endorsement deal, like 10% off the one shop.
plus, I mean, Rin Nakai is also, I mean, she's got some strange things going on. She's got like a weird obsession with Kana Watanabe and seems super upset that Kana Watanabe never fought her, despite the fact that it was her team that was the one dragging the feet on that. And Kana Watanabe actually like held off going abroad for that fight to happen, which never happened. And now she's mad that she left. And now she's all mad at Sugiyama. The funny thing about her getting mad at Sugiyama is Sugiyama made the shrimp and the salt comment. In that comment, she did not say Rin Nakai's name. There was like nothing identifying about Rin Nakai in the comment. And then Rin Nakai immediately jumped all over it, which is like, in my opinion, a case of like, thou dost protest too much. Like, it looks really bad when someone talks about domestic abuse. Like, that'd be like if someone said domestic abuse is bad. And I jumped in and replied, like, it's not always bad. How dare you call me a domestic abuser? It's like, oh, when you respond to generic comments, it just makes it look true.
Right. Yeah.
But
So,
do you think we'll see some victory cartwheels and flips, Drake, after this fight?
yeah, I think that's safe to expect. Why not? I mean, she doesn't get to do it that often in the cage, right? But this comment here from Organically Powered asking or saying if Rin takes the tournament, One in Rising will definitely come calling. Problem with that, Well,
will they?
yeah, I don't. We've already kind of addressed, I think, why that very likely still won't happen. And I mean, even if that were to happen, getting it done is a whole different thing. But you got to think about this. I mean, Ryzen doesn't have a flyweight division. I mean, who are they gonna? They'd have to pull somebody, presumably from this tournament, right, for her to fight, which is kind of like whatever. And I feel very confident against saying that Ryzen is not going to be touching Rin anytime soon, ever again.
I don't think one with their squeaky clean image wants to deal with the fetish aspect.
Squeaky clean.
I think
with their respect, honor, dignity, loyalty.
I honestly think if Rin's obsessed with fighting abroad, I mean, a
PVT
promotion
shoot.
like Road FC or something might be more in the cards, because Road FC has worked with kind of prima donnas in the past and made it work. But I mean, the UFC is not going to happen. Bellator might be interested in her. Scott Coker seems good at working with people, but her management is so difficult to deal with that Deep is pretty much the only promotion willing to work with her at this point, at least in Japan.
Right. They asked for a 2-fight UFC contract. Who turns down a 3-fight UFC contract and say, "Oh, we only need 2 fights, thank you"?
It was a weird thing where she didn't want to. She didn't want to be locked down. Like, it was some weird thing. Like, I mean, her career is just riddled with bad decisions. It was unfortunate because she's a very good fighter.
Yeah. Okay. So next question: which, in your opinions, which Deep Jewels fighter is likely next to make their Ryzen debut? I'll be honest. I have, in my opinion, I think it's got to be winner of this fight. I think Alno versus Suda.
Did you say debut or just
back to debut in Ryzen? Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that you're correct in saying that the next person going to make their debut is probably one of the atomweights, because the flyweight tournament's probably going to take some time. I think it's either going to be someone from this fight or someone from or Miki Matono, because Miki Matono has been at a lot of Rising shows. She corners Reyna, but I think the difficulty with Miki Matono is I don't think she's as charismatic or hasn't promoted herself in the same way as Alno or Suda could. And if they're looking at it from a marketing angle, I think they're more interested probably in Alno or Suda.
Yeah, that seems pretty
then
safe.
Again, you could bring Matono in and just market her as like the new Hamasaki, and have her be like Hamasaki Light, Hamasaki.
Fight on the same card, wear the same outfit.
Yeah,
already have a close enough hairstyle.
Big shoes to fill.
Moedi Suda is kind of like, seems to be the type of fighter that Rising likes. Like, when they want women, they like the young, cute angle for marketing. So that seems to fall into what they've done before.
Yeah. And which of the Rising vets in Deep Jewels is probably next to return, because they're busy for
I think it'll be we'll see the Sayaka and Hamasaki rematch probably relatively soon. Maybe not Ryzen 34, maybe 35. But I would expect her, as we're obviously seeing Oshima on this card, and then she's got 2 belts, wants to defend them still, and I'm sure Deep would like her to defend them. But obviously there's that tournament possibility. Siwoo Park's fight got pushed to what they're going to do it at the next event.
Yeah, it's going to be at the Osaka card.
Okay, so there's that. I think it's, especially with Sayaka not even being on this one, I'm sure that they'll make that Hamasaki rematch for as soon as possible.
I think Drake's right. I mean, it's clear that Sayaka Izawa's next fight is going to be with Ryzen. Like, she beat Hamasaki. It kind of has to be.
Yeah. And, you can't screw that up. That's going to be massive.
And I think Rising's in a situation where they realize that their current atomweight division, Kana Watanabe, Kana Asakura side, is super old. Like, they kind of have a bunch of, like, the average age has to be close to 40. Like, they have Fujino, Hamasaki, Miyu Yamamoto, who are all like 39, or I mean, Miyu is like 45, I feel like.
47.
47.
Yeah. So
looks better than
Sayaka Izawa in there is like a breath of fresh air to the division. And I would like to have seen them brought Saudi Oshima back too, but Saudi Oshima also, I mean, you'll see her working at deep jewel shows. She's very close to promotion. She holds 2 belts, and she very much so wants to defend them. So I think we'll see that.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't have her, book her to defend at least one of her 2 titles.
Yeah.
After going to Ryzen. So
yeah,
just to remind people, like, hey, yeah, she's one of our champions.
I think for microweight, I imagine they want to wait for the Amp the Rocket. Was that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Amp the Rocket to get back in the country, because she's also is Amp the Rocket the Deep Jewels microweight champion, and Saudi Oshima is the deep microweight champion, just to make it really confusing. So, but yeah.
I want to see Murakami and Oshima though too.
That'd be great.
Man, I wish that she would have got to fight in that tournament too.
Yeah, it would be an interesting fight, because it'd be interesting to see what Aya Murakami does if she can't take someone down.
Yeah.
So then the same day, March 12th, there's more MMA fights at Lumpini Stadium in Thailand, which for anyone watching that's not familiar, Lumpini is one of the big Muay Thai stadiums. Up until this year, they did not allow women fighters, and up until I think like last year or the year before, MMA was technically banned in Thailand. So now they have not only women fighters in Lumpini, they have MMA fights in Lumpini. And they booked this atomweight bout. Noelle Grandjean taking on Anita, the arm collector, Karim. I'm not sure if you two are familiar with either of them.
I am not. But is this going to be like one of those situations where her name is Anita, the arm collector, but she actually has no arm bars on her record?
Right.
She has 2, I think.
Because I just remember in an Invicta FC show where Barb Ho-Chang had a T-shirt. Her shirt for the event said, "Every time I choke someone out, a unicorn farts a rainbow."
Right.
And I was like, "Well, you've never choked someone out, so I guess that's never happened." But yeah. I just looked her up. She's never won by armbar. The arm collector has never won by armbar. I was right. I saw through this bullshit immediately. That nickname seemed too fake. She has only ever won by decision. She has never won by armbar.
Yeah.
That's like Lisa Versosa, who was also the Spangler.
The arm collector just seems like such a self-chosen nickname to me that I just knew that she probably hasn't won by armbar.
Yeah. Well, what I think makes this interesting, because like Noelle Grandjean, she's only like 19 years old, but she's basically already made fighting her career because she got her face tattooed. And it's like, well, if you're going to do that, your 2 options are, or your 3 options are fighter, some type of fighter, tattoo artist, or bartender.
It's 2022, man. You never know.
She got that Mike Perry tattoo going on right over the eyebrow.
I mean, it is 2022, but face tattoos are a little different. Like,
is this on a One Warriors card or actual One Championship card?
I don't know what. I think it's going to be Fairtex Fight Promotions.
Okay.
So
interesting,
because they've already done 2 MMA events so far.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Muay Thai expert, but I follow a couple of Muay Thai fighters in Thailand. And isn't one of the reasons all this is happening is because Muay Thai is actually not doing well in Thailand at the moment. So a lot of the big stadiums are kind of branching out and trying to get money.
I have no idea. I think there have been like crackdowns on gambling. I think so. Maybe
I just heard that popularity is kind of dwindling. I don't know if it's like sumo in Japan where it's very cyclical. Like sumo is either like really popular or nobody's watching it at all. Like it seems to go through phases depending on who's doing well. But I had heard that Muay Thai wasn't necessarily doing well in Thailand at the moment.
Well, I know like sumo's big problem is that all the champions have been like Mongolian. So,
and they are all awesome. I love all those guys. I mean, going back to Rising, Asa Shoto's representative in Rising did awful, but I still love him.
Yeah, but I mean, when it's like your national sport or one of your national sports, and none of your champions are Japanese, so.
Well, I mean, it's going to happen because I think, not to get too far off this path, but Mongolian wrestling is almost exactly the same as sumo wrestling. So You're going to
They
get
just
guys
cool
who
shoulder
want to
armor.
make money coming over.
Yeah. They wear much cooler shoulder armor though.
That's
in
true.
Mongolia.
That's true. And little itty bitty hats.
Apparently, sumo had some weed scandals.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're in Rising now. Both of he's talking about Sidario and his brother, the twins.
Uh,
Not Sidario himself. His brother got caught with weed and banned from sumo.
it's still crazy to me, like how controversial weed is at this stage, and like
Well,
first world
sumo's super strict. I mean, I don't know if you remember the guy that fought in Rising, the Egyptian guy that I think was working with Josh Barnett.
Sunarashi?
He got banned from sumo for driving a car. Like,
What?
sumo wrestlers aren't allowed to drive cars. I think he got temporarily banned, and then he got caught driving again, and they banned him. Like, you're not allowed to drive when you're a sumo wrestler.
It's dangerous.
So it's just like, but I mean, that's such a stupid thing. Like, does he love driving that much? He just like can't have. I must forfeit my entire career to drive to the 7-Eleven.
Hey, you could say the same thing about John Jones.
Yeah, yeah. He had to headbutt that police car.
So let's talk about some one stuff. So Itsuki Hirata has signed a sponsorship deal with Monster Energy, first
Yes,
Japanese fighter, I believe, to do so.
perfect signing for them. It's the exact type of fighter. I think seeing the type of fighters that Monster seems to like and the image they portray, Itsuki Hirata is the perfect spokesperson for them in Japan.
Yeah.
I think my I don't actually know anything, but my guess would be a lot of this was brokered through her relationship with Abima Television. Like, if you follow Abima or go to their YouTube channel, like, the fighter they promote the most is Itsuki Hirata. They are all over Itsuki Hirata. It's like her and Shinya Aoki are 90% of Abima's promotional talent. And Abima TV is what One Championship airs on in Japan. It airs for free. And when Itsuki fights, they do huge numbers. When she doesn't fight, they don't do any real numbers at all. So, I mean, Itsuki's a huge star, and it kind of makes sense because she kind of has this counterculture vibe. I mean, you just tell she has a lot of tattoos. That's already pretty counterculture in Japan. And Monster seems to like that image. So I think it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah. How long until she starts taking weird photos with that one guy?
Hans Molenkamp.
Yeah,
Oh.
Hans Moleman.
Leave him out of Japan. Let Dominic Cruz fight him to death or something.
So, Charlie, you'd know more than I would. What does this sponsor compare to like other sponsorships in Japan? Because I know like most of the big sponsors in Japan are Japanese sponsors sponsoring Japanese fighters, and this is like a non-Japanese sponsor.
That's true, but some other fighters had some pretty big foreign sponsors. I believe Horiguchi and Kana Asakura are both sponsored by TikTok. And so you've seen some other big sponsors like that as well. But it's interesting because Itsuki's fan base is predominantly non-Japanese. I think a lot of the One Championship fighters have a lot of foreign fans.
Simps.
She has a lot of foreign fans. Yeah, I mean, she has, that's one way to put it. So, I mean, while she has Japanese fans, I would go to gamble that most of her fans aren't Japanese. And so this is kind of an interesting marketing angle because she doesn't fight in Japan. So she'll be wearing this stuff like in Singapore. She'll be wearing it like in Thailand where they do their events and doing like the videos and pictures in Japan, but she doesn't actually fight in Japan. So it's kind of a smart pan-Asiatic marketing tool by Monster.
Then
Plus, I mean, she's always either, what is she like? This week she's dating Ursa Yamamoto. Next week they're broken up. The week after they're dating. So never know what's going to happen.
yeah,
People like to follow volatile people. She also has a lot of lashbacks. She's a fun follow on social media, so I'd check it out. She also got in a big fight with Deep at one point in time because I think her brother fights for Deep.
Yeah, I wonder why she's so popular.
Well, One Championship does have a way they like to promote their fighters. The thumbnails they use for their fight videos are absolutely hilarious.
I think they're actually moving away from that, at least recently.
the thumbnails are no longer the girls like in bikini, like glamour shots of the girls in bikinis.
Yeah, it's like they're not stealing from their social media anymore.
Well, Angela Lee's back. They got to bring up the professional image again.
True. The gotta make everything look good. So, question about Itsuki, because I get into some arguments with my commenters and on Reddit and stuff. Just how good is Hirata as a fighter? Because my big thing is that I lash back at people that think, oh, she was on her way to win the Grand Prix and this and that. And I think my big argument is like her record has been carefully crafted. And the first opponent she fought that actually had like a true winning record, like more than one win, more than losses, was Elise Anderson. And Anderson hadn't fought in 2 years.
Yeah,
So-
and then almost finished her in the third round there.
Yeah, she almost got knocked out. And I think it was the first time going to a decision for her as well.
Mhm, yeah. I mean, I think Itsuki's clearly pretty talented, but it's kind of still early to tell with her. Similar to Sawa, not to that same extent, obviously, but yeah, I wasn't quite sold on her going to win the tournament or anything, especially in the beginning when we had it all mapped out and it didn't fall apart because it changed quite drastically
Before the wheels fell off the wagon.
Oh, completely. I mean,
bad news, Ritu, you're out of the tournament. You're in the tournament. You're in the tournament.
That was just frustrating to watch, but yeah.
I mean, it's hard. People forget since Itsuki's been around for a while. She's only 22 years old, so she's still an incredibly young fighter.
Mm-hmm.
She has a solid judo background. I think she actually trained with one of the guys that won the Olympic gold. I think she trained with Wolf or someone like that. But yeah, I mean, it's not something unique to her. One championship does that with a bunch of their fighters. I mean, at one point in time, wasn't Jinny Huang also undefeated? And then they just
5-0.
fed her to the wolves. So I mean, one championship likes to build up contenders and then feed them to Angela Lee. So
yeah,
Shinya Aoki is known for being a weirdo. You don't say. She's been friends with him for a long time, and I actually think he's a positive influence on her. I think one of the funnier moments I've ever seen, that if you ever get the opportunity, you should do this, is watch a one championship show with the Japanese commentary on, because Shinya Aoki does not care. He just says the crazy.
His voice is so awful.
First off, you can barely understand what he's saying. Like the mic barely picks up his voice. But in her last fight with Elise Anderson, I think Arsen Yamamoto was just like giving her terrible cornering advice. You could hear Shinya Aoki just like saying, "Don't do that. That's stupid advice."
Wasn't
it actually led to a big argument.
Why is he cornering her?
Because Arsen Yamamoto got mad at Shinya Aoki for saying that his advice was stupid. But yeah, if I was going to take advice from somebody, would it be the guy that's Arsen Yamamoto, whose uncle was a famous fighter, or would it be from one of the most, like, when Japanese MMA is thought of, Shinya Aoki is one of the legends of the sport, who's trained tons of talented fighters. I think Shinya Aoki is actually a positive light in her life, not a negative.
Yeah, but Shinya's not laying down the pipe, and Arsen is.
Oh, we don't know. I think it looks like they might have broken up again.
Oh, is it a day ending in Y?
Talking about? Not new with the lingo, but she also is one of the rare winning fighters at Crazy B. The Crazy B like absolutely fell apart. It's just her and Siwoo Park and Miyu holding it together now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Because
back to your original question, though. I mean, Ham Sohee to me was like the clear favorite to win the tournament, with Denise being second, and that entire situation self-destructed. And the fact that Ritu made it to the finals shows you how crazy the tournament was.
Yeah. What's funny you bring up Ham being the favorite, because one thing that covering one has shown the light on my eyes. There are actually legit one championship casuals. Like, because like the people in the know thought like, oh, Ham's the favorite to win this. Whereas like a lot of other people were like, oh, well, Denise is the favorite to win this. And,
right.
Or no, Itsuki's the favorite to win. I'm like, Do y'all
Well,
not know who Hamsahi is?
It was pretty
I think-
crazy.
What the Denise situation showed to me is that since one bounces around to a bunch of different Asian countries, a lot of those Asian countries just like support their fighter no matter what.
Yeah.
And after that Ham fight, it looks like the Filipino fans just went absolutely nuts. And that's where that whole fiasco came from. But also, blame One Championship. One Championship did not make a big deal out of signing Ham Sohee at all. They did not promote her at all, because to do so would be to admit that Angela Lee isn't the number one atom weight in the world,
Right.
despite the fact that she fights
Until she beats Ham,
125
and then you're
pounds.
like, oh, she beat this great atom weight fighter. It's like,
Yeah.
who you never talked about before.
Someone who's a commentator for One Championship actually sent me that they weren't allowed to talk about Ham Sohee's like other achievements.
That's ridiculous.
They weren't allowed to like mention other promotions and things, which is hilarious knowing that, because Aoki talked about all of them. Like Aoki just spent the entire commentary just talking about deep jewels and deep. And I think during the Ritu Fogat Meng Bo fight, he just kept talking about like how they both didn't look like they knew what they were doing. Like he's like, as far like it's almost as good as drunk Peter Arts level of commentary. So I highly recommend Shin Aoki commentary.
Yeah, so basically one is like pre-Strike Force buyout UFC. Oh yeah, they have a lot of experience fighting overseas in Japan, because they wouldn't say pride.
Oh yeah, and One Championship's obsession with Japan has always been kind of funny to me, because like they're not popular in Japan. Like only really diehard fans know who One Championship is in Japan, and those that do also know that like One Championship's got a lot of problems. And I think the pandemic made it even worse, because you had all these young Japanese fighters just constantly complaining about they had no fights lined up. Whereas promotions like Bellator, I mean, Bellator has made giant strides in Japan. By working with Rising, Bellator has now become like on the same level as the UFC almost in a lot of these fans' minds. So
yeah, it's you can tell that Chatri Sityoton, the one CEO, was like kind of educated in the US, because that seems to be like a uniquely American thing, the absolute obsession with martial arts in Japan, like the Weeaboo thing. I mean, that's not like totally unique to the US, but it's definitely like biggest in the US.
Well,
like people
the whole
watch
like
martial arts movies and they all want to move to Japan, and
the whole warrior spirit, or like the
yeah,
strength and honor
Bushido
stuff,
spirit.
which like I've never seen a single Japanese fighter talk about. So,
funny how that works.
yeah. Doesn't he get upset if you bring up the fact that he was raised in the U.S.? I heard he refuses to answer
Oh, I'm
questions
sure.
on that.
I'm sure he
Yeah.
does.
Well, apparently, like his mom slept in his dorm room or something because he was so poor. It's like there's a lot of mysteries surrounding him.
Well, my favorite is just
Different story.
what nationality are they going to claim Angela Lee is in each interview? It's like she's either Canadian, Hawaiian, or Singaporean, or Chinese, depending on what they need to market in that current video.
Well, the big joke is when One Championship finally makes their debut in Korea, they're going to push her Korean mom to the forefront.
Well, that's a good point. Why has One Championship not gone to Korea? They have so many good Korean fighters now. It kind of blows my mind that they haven't gone to Korea. And
I believe they could not get a high dollar Korean sponsor, which makes it difficult to do business there.
Well, they have that one girl. What's her name?
Sponsors.
What's the girl's name? Song Ga-yoon?
Yeah,
they have that girl from Terrace House who's been under One Championship contract for like 5 years and has never made her debut. She just like lives in Singapore and trains at Evolve because they had to wait out her Road FC contract, which has happened.
I don't think she's ever going to get out of it. That thing's
she did get it. She waited it out. It's over. She's out of the Road FC contract.
Uh-huh.
But who knows?
Okay. So keeping with one, we have 1X on March 26th, and we have Ham versus Zamboanga 2. This fight was like really close and pretty controversial. I saw it originally. I saw it going either way, and then when I watched it back, I'm like, okay, I see why they gave it to Ham, because other than like the big takedown and ground and pound in like the last minute of
Mhm.
the fight from Zamboanga, she really didn't achieve much. And
Right.
in the striking department, when there was striking, it wasn't just Zamboanga hip hugging Ham. I thought Ham got the better of the striking.
I
Yeah.
absolutely hated this fight watching it. It's one of the reasons I love the ring is I just hate watching like cage grinding tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like Zamboanga's entire strategy was like, I'm going to throw some punches and try to hold Ham against the cage. And I just cannot stand watching those types of fights develop when it's like clear that's the strategy. And it seemed like a weird, I don't know what was going on in Zamboanga's mind. I don't know if she felt that if Ham Sohang was smaller but more mobile, so I should hold her against the cage. But Zamboanga did take her down and hold her, but she never did anything with those positions. And in my eyes, that's a giant miss. Like if you take someone down and don't do anything with it, that's not really a round stealing moment.
Yeah.
Especially, doesn't one championship score their fates kind of the same as Pride rules, where it's who
as
was
a whole.
closest to finishing the fight?
Yeah, that is the first criteria they list is damage and attempts to finish the fight.
Yeah, because I thought Ham Sohee was getting the clear better punches in, which was the only real damage ever done in the fight by either side.
Mhm.
Yeah. But so
I can't remember. Was there a really bad cut at one point in time too?
Yeah, Denise got
there
cut
was a
towards the end.
accidental headbutt, clash of heads.
I mean,
so here's my question: what does each fighter need to do differently in this fight?
Well, I think maybe higher volume from Ham would be nice just to keep Denise, thinking a bit more. And I think that honestly, in the first fight, despite still thinking that Ham rightfully won, I think she was maybe, I don't want to say rusty, but like it had been a while since she had fought. So it was kind of maybe just, getting back at the swing of things. And now it'll have been a little bit again since that first fight, but not the same amount of time. And, she packed on a lot of muscle mass for that fight too. So maybe just getting used to those kind of changes. I mean, she looked ripped leading into that one and for that fight in general. So I think maybe just more activity from her, try and avoid getting clinched up again. I mean, I imagine Denise would try to be more aggressive herself just overall because she feels that she was robbed, all that kind of thing. But like we saw, she didn't really do that much damage outside of that big slam towards the end and, the minimal ground and pound. So I'm very curious to see how it plays out. But I think having already fought once too, that will only play in the favor of, the most experienced person in this entire division for Sohee Ham and one.
Apparently, there was like some shenanigans going on with Ham's weigh-in too. Like she still hadn't completely weighed in until like the day of the show because of the hydration protocols or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she mentioned that after the fight, like, yeah, I didn't make weight until like fight day. So I don't know if she was like maybe still a little drained going into the fight, or it's hard to tell because of using Instagram translator and whatnot.
My issue, I mean, outside of that, I didn't like Ham going to one championship because Ham's not a strawweight.
Right.
And say what you will about the atomweight division of one championship, its closest equivalent is strawweight. And we all saw what happened to Ham in the UFC, which is she's good enough to fight these bigger girls and have her moments, but they can't bully and push her around. And she doesn't have the same power. I mean, she was knocking people out in atomweight. She's an absolute monster at atomweight. But her UFC career showed that power doesn't go up with her to strawweight.
Out of her 4 opponents in the UFC, 3 of them ended up at flyweight.
And she still arguably should be 3-1.
Also, those split decisions were awful. And that one girl poked the hell out of her eyes. I mean, those were some terrible eye gouges in the Taylor fight. But I just worry about her power moving up a division and whether she can keep these bigger fighters off of her. But I understand that one championship offered her like twice what Rising was paying her, and that this is kind of an exciting opportunity to fight new talent. But she is going to have a size disadvantage, kind of like Vivi May they're kind of in the same position where they're going to be much smaller than their opponents going forward.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, one championship has like this weird thing with the atomweight division where it's like I feel like half of it are actual atom weights, and then like half of it are straw weights. And you can see it in the rankings. Like when Jenny Huang fought Angela Lee, it looked like a child fighting a grown-up.
Yeah, I think Angela's actually lost more weight since having a baby. She showed a picture recently on Instagram. She's like at 125 right now. So
did one championship call her and tell her to stop taking weight cut photos because it goes against the narrative?
Probably. That's funny you bring that up because like for one Empower, like Itsuki Hirata is literally doing an Instagram live in a sauna suit on the treadmill.
Yeah, not allowed to cut water though, unless they like you at the backstage weigh-ins that no one sees.
Yeah. Well, now you can actually watch the weigh-ins. They've made them more public now.
Again, the actual weigh-in, or is it like a public weigh-in?
It's an actual weigh-in.
But don't they weigh them in like
they
5
come up,
times?
they hand over their teacup, and then they get on the scale.
You watch it every day?
You not every day, just like the final.
Because they weigh them out throughout the week, don't they?
Yeah.
That still seems sketchy to me.
Yeah, it's the final weigh-in and hydration testing.
I just am upset that the overturning committee that nobody knew the members of no longer exist. Where like, what do you got to do to be a member on the nameless committee that gets to arbitrarily decide whether fights are okay or not?
Fucking insane.
I'm just waiting for them to do like a pro wrestling style thing where they finally reveal who's on the competition committee, and they come out in a big robe, and then they pull back the hood, and it's Chatri Sityoton like Vince McMahon. He goes, "It's me, Austin. It was me all along."
I would just love it if their rule book had like an asterisk. There was like, these rules apply unless you train at Evolve. If you do, you're allowed to spike your opponents on their heads and not make weight and do whatever you want to do.
Yes, Evolve with their huge list of instructors that spend one day a year there.
Hey man, I heard GSP teaches jiu-jitsu there.
Well, Victoria Lee is an assistant MMA instructor there.
Isn't she
my goodness.
Hey, you show some respect when you say her name. I mean, she's the same age as Serena Williams and Mike Tyson were when they won their championships. That might be my favorite one championship post, by the way, was when they had the Twitter post that was like Serena Williams, Mike Tyson, and like LeBron James.
Right.
And then Victoria Lee being like, all of these people were champions before they were 18. And I'm like, okay.
Absurd.
I love one championship. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious to follow.
Almost as interesting as Rin Nakai's life. So big question. I think most people would agree. Does the winner of this fight get the next title shot, depending on what happens?
No, it's Stamp. Isn't it Stamp?
Well, I mean, after Stamp versus Angela Lee.
I mean,
unless Stamp wins.
Does anything one championship do make sense? Like none of their plans happen the way that they're supposed to. So trying to predict who's going to fight the winner of that fight next is impossible. Like, is Angela Lee going to move back up to their 125-pound division and try to become a two-belt champion again? Also, didn't what's her name? Who is the strawweight champion again? The fighting
Jingnan.
Didn't she move back down to atomweight recently?
She mentioned it.
She's been talking about it.
Yeah. So I mean, that might be an interesting fight for them because for some reason, one championship seems not into promoting Ham Sohee. Like, they signed her and didn't announce they signed her for like a year. So I mean, they just don't seem to be on the Ham Sohee train. And I don't think one championship likes Denise. I think Denise has made like anti-Angela Lee comments about how they showed favoritism. And then after she made anti-Angela Lee comments, she was taken out of the tournament. So I mean, so
I think that's why they put her up against Ham, so that they could be like, well, let's just get rid of her now.
Yeah. How dare you speak bad about the girl that's defended her title once in 5 years or something crazy? Like, I'm excited though. I like Angela Lee, but it is true that she's barely defended the atomweight championship.
Yeah, she's defended it once, going on like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Speaking of that one, then we have, of course, the title fight.
I love how big the Stamp Fairtex belt is.
It's
Like
crazy.
clearly, we're like, let's make the biggest belt we possibly can for the smallest.
I think it actually is bigger than the championship belt. Like the Grand Prix belts are bigger.
Yeah.
Than the actual championship belts, because like when Demetrius Johnson won, like they put it on his shoulder and he like made a joke about it, like oh, like weighing it down.
It's like at least 12 pounds. I remember they were saying it's at least that heavy.
I mean, I interviewed Stamp last year going into this tournament, and I don't think she thought she was going to win the tournament based off of the answers she gave. She was like, yeah, I'm going to fight in the tournament, and then I'm going to go for the kickboxing title and the Muay Thai title. Like, her future plans didn't include, like, fighting Angela Lee and winning the championship.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like threw her – I think she's as surprised as everybody that she won.
Well, she was having a bad year going into it because she had lost her had lost her Muay Thai title. Then she lost her kickboxing title, or vice versa. Then after that, she broke up with her and Rod Tang broke up. So she went crazy, cut off her hair, and dyed it orange.
Yeah.
And then she lost her first in MMA for the first time to Raso Hina.
Well, I mean, Radatong only dates winners, is what. No, I'm just kidding. I think that was just a case. I mean, can you really do Muay Thai, kickboxing, and MMA all at the same time?
No, it was a matter of time.
Even MMA, even kickboxing and Muay Thai are like drastically different. So that's probably difficult, but I mean, I just don't see how she beats Angela Lee. I just don't see it happening unless Angela Lee's time off plays a factor.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, we know she's coming in. She should be coming in at least injury-free after all that time off. Because I know she's had like trouble with her back before because of that car wreck.
Yeah, but Angela Lee's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
She's competent with her striking,
and
will probably have a very clear advantage on the ground. And I mean, I haven't seen them stand side by side, but my thought process is Angela Lee is not just a little bit bigger, but she's probably a lot bigger than Stamp Fairtex. Because I remember I saw a picture of Angela Lee standing next to Rachel Ostovich, and Angela Lee looked bigger than Rachel Ostovich, who fights at flyweight. So.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, she was thick.
Yeah, so I mean, I just see if it goes to the ground, I think Lee would submit her quite quickly. But I mean, Stamp has made improvements to her ground game, and I just don't think it's the same level as Lee.
Yeah, not enough time. I think that as much as Stamp has clearly improved on the ground defensively and offensively, I mean, against somebody like Angela, where this matchup in particular, I think the size will be a big, like the X factor kind of, despite the obvious advantages for each. I mean, Stamp the better striker, of course, but I can't see it not going to the ground, and once it's there, I just think Stamp will drown, Well,
I mean, Stamp is a very good striker, but outside of when she was fighting like people that had no business being in the cage or ring with her, she hasn't shown like knockout. She hasn't been knocking people out or anything.
That's true.
Most of her wins are submissions, crazy enough, recently. And I just don't see her being able to knock out. I mean, Angela was dropped by Vivi May, but that was a while ago. And I just don't see Stamp being able to. Well, I guess Angela Lee was also knocked out by body punches, but that was also against a bigger opponent who has more power. And Stamp just hasn't shown to carry the power over.
Well, actually, Angela was kind of bigger than Sion, because like I remember Sion saying like I was really surprised when we stared off, and Angela seemed bigger than her. So
I think she has the length advantages, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Not by a lot, but I remember her, I think, being a little bit taller, and then surely reach and all that.
I think one of Lee's biggest attributes is she actually has like a big head. When you look at her compared to her opponents, she just has this like massive head, and
that's helpful.
I'm waiting for the helpful part of this.
Crazy. She doesn't have any head movement, so she just all her damage she just absorbs in the face, and it's like keeps going.
It was pretty wild that she did survive that knockdown from Yamaguchi.
I mean, what the Stamp only way to win this is like through a body punch knockout, like a body combo. But
I mean, it could be like attrition.
But
like
as Drake said, there's no way this fight in a championship fight doesn't go to the ground at some point. And when it does go to the ground, that's when it's the beginning of the end. It's kind of like when Koike or someone else gets into the ground and rises.
Yeah.
It's going to be over quite quickly.
Yeah, I think. I can't wait to see these two face off. That way,
You got to think. I mean, Lee's married to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, Jiu-Jitsu's probably only gotten better since she got married.
Yeah.
She'll be the first Singapore or Canadian or Hawaiian or American champion.
Okay.
Well, I see on the promotional poster she's Singapore. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's next for Lee if she wins? What do you think is next? Because I think she's going, like she already has plans to go back up to 125 to fight for the title again, even though she's 0-2 in the division.
I mean, if she wants to do something interesting for her career, that's the only move, because leaving one championship isn't an option because no other promotion is going to pay her what she makes in one championship. So I think she's kind of stuck in one championship. I mean, it's not a bad thing. She gets paid a lot of money, but she's in one championship for the rest of her career. And if she wants to do something new and interesting, she has to move up in a weight division.
I mean, I could see her leaving after a while. You know, it's easy to forget that she is like, what, 25 still? And, you know, if she just continues to rack up title defenses and look ridiculous on paper, I could see the UFC maybe, depending on how they could sell that.
But I remember a press release, Drake, of one championship said she was the highest paid female fighter in the world.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way the UFC has the financial resources to match an offer by one championship.
Yeah.
I think the Panda fight, as the guy mentions, is kind of interesting just because they're 1-1.
I would love that trilogy for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, those are two of the best fights I've ever seen in my life. So,
yeah.
I think in the rematch, Lee was on her way to winning the decision, and then she got the suplex, which Sion kind of landed on her head. You could tell she was dazed from it, which allowed Lee to get the choke at like the last second.
Did you not hear the asterisk that Lees are allowed to slam on the head?
Well, technically, Christian got disqualified.
He did? They disqualified him for that?
Yeah, he was one of the three, I think. One of the two or three.
They went back and declared it a no contest.
Well, that's why they got rid of that committee. That committee targeted a Lee, and ever since then, they've been destroyed.
Well, I think what happened was like one faced such a backlash over that ruling. They're like, but Christian won a fight doing that, and like they basically had no choice but to do it. So like one definitely is at the mercy of their fans sometimes on social media. Like they're very attuned
they respond
to social
quickly.
Media, whereas like UFC is like,
Zamboanga fight. Those Filipino fans were all over that fight, and they were like, "Oh, we're reviewing it immediately." Yeah.
Well, they were ratioing every video on one's channel. Like they were going in and leaving nasty comments on every video on their channel and hitting the dislike button.
Well, I mean, when you have more fans than the Super Bowl, that's a lot of people sending you videos. So, I mean, when you're the most popular sport in Asia and you're getting billions of comments about it, you got to respond.
Billions of potential viewers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about Lee if she wins. What if she loses? Does one immediately give her a rematch?
Oh yeah. No doubt about it.
I mean, if Stamp wins, Stamp is she's so smart with her social media. Like Stamp has branded herself. She's so popular on social media. If Stamp wins, they can make her into a giant star and just have Lee move up a division. But I do think that they would do the rematch. But if I was them, I would keep Stamp. They're obsessed with being big in Thailand as well. What better way to do it than through Stamp?
And then you say, fuck it, and give Victoria the title shot.
Yeah. Well, I was upset that I wanted to see Stomp versus Ham Sohee or Stomp versus Itsuki in the tournament. And we got none of those.
You're supposed
Maybe
to
we
get
can see those in the future.
And then Ham fractured one of her fingers. So
Maybe if Stomp wins the title, we can stop getting her to try to compete in 3 different sports at once and get her to focus on her MMA career.
yeah. Well, I think that's what the Grand Prix basically did was like she put herself all into MMA for a little while. But I'm looking forward to this one. I think
great. I'll watch it.
I think Lee wins. I'm just looking forward to see like how she looks, the face off, to see the size difference, because that's one of my favorite things about Angela Lee is you like line up the face off pictures and see how big she is against her opponents. And
I mean, I talk a lot of shit about One Championship because they leave themselves open to being talked shit about because it's funny to joke about them. But they put on great fights, and I'm excited for this fight. And I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch the Ham Sohei Zamboanga fight. One Championship. Without them, would we have all these Thai fighters? Would we have all of these like fighters from like Cambodia and all these countries that fight fighters from? So I'm going to watch, but I imagine it's going to look like a giant fighting a child, maybe.
no blue hair.
Stipulation.
She kept with that red hair for a long time, right?
For a bit.
Yeah.
She's young. You also forget she's also a college student. She's still in school.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so final one topic. So after her win over B Nguyen, Lin He Chin just said, I want a title shot. I want a title shot. Realistically, how far is she from a shot? And keep in mind, before the start of the Grand Prix, she was ranked, I think, 3rd in the division.
I
don't think that's true. Before the Grand Prix?
Well, before
is this one championship
#3.
rankings? Because one championship rankings make no sense. They ranked Ham Sohei at like 7th or something crazy.
Oh, they kept her below Denise, even though she won against Denise.
Yeah.
I think that was their way of placating the Filipino fans. Yeah, before the Ritu Phogat fight, which Ritu won.
Lynn hadn't fought in like 2 years before that.
Which was weird. Why she was ranked at number 3 when she hadn't fought in like.
That's right. Because I remember MMA Rising, Robert Sargent was constantly talking about how One Championship like refuses to use her. Like they've just had her sitting on the bench for so long. So it is refreshing to see her back in action.
The last 2 years.
Yeah.
But personally, I think if she looks good in her wins and she seems to talk a good game, which promoters like, I think she's like 2 wins maybe away from a title shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. And great personality too. Yeah, fun fighter to watch, fun fighter to talk to. I spoke to her, I think, before that Ritu one, but very just fun individual, and obviously not afraid to kind of talk a little bit too, depending on the situation. So I think 2, because that'd be a 3-fight winning streak in that case, depending on who she fights. Could need just one more, again, depending on who. Plenty of options, but it's not going to be next. No.
I've always felt that One Championship has kind of been steered by what markets they're looking to grow into. Yeah. And One Championship does like the idea of Chinese champions. So, if you're a Chinese fighter, that's certainly going to help you get a title shot. And I think that, if she gets a couple more wins, they might feed her to somebody, or they might give her. They seem to like feeding Angela Lee people that they build up records for. So,
look at this, Mung Bo's still on the atom weight, even though she
moved up in weight and fought.
So he's beneath someone she beat.
Yeah,
and
at least Stamp's number 1. That's the one that actually makes the most sense.
She's practically the interim champion. Yeah.
Of course, look at this. Angela Lee's number 3 at strawweight, even though she's 0-2.
That is so funny.
Wait, who did Ayaka Mura fight recently?
She had her title shot.
That's right. Yeah. She got absolutely destroyed. So I was like, why is she in the top 5?
Yeah, it wasn't very competitive.
Angela Lee, that's another example. Ayaka Mura, when she fought in Japan, she fought at atomweight. Like she shouldn't be at the strawweight thing.
I think strawweight Well, like
Well, she had
115.
problems with her
115.
weight, but she did fight in atomweight, I believe, a couple times.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Because I remember she fought Viviane Araujo, and Araujo closed her eye in the first round.
Yep, I think I remember that because I think she got her driver's license picture taken the next day.
That's unfortunate. Oh my goodness.
Showing up to the DMV like, who hurt you, honey? Do you want us to call the police?
Yeah, exactly.
It was some Brazilian girl.
You guys, I'm wrong. I think she's always fought at strawweight, but I mean, even then,
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty thick.
it's the same. It's the same example as Ham Sohi. Like she's fighting in one championship strawweight, so that means she's fighting at flyweight.
Yeah. What's the
One
that's the same as,
championship. Even for people who know about it, it's still just annoying to talk about their weight system.
Oh,
like-
so much.
Just rename them. I understand the system you want to do. Just rename them. Like
well, because they
name
didn't
your
want to
atomweight
actually-
division strawweight and name your strawweight
Yeah.
division flyweight. And make everybody happy.
Well, the reasoning was they wanted to keep their champions, the champions of the quote same weight class. Like they didn't want to just go from say, oh, Angela Lee well, okay, we'll say Ben Askren. They didn't want to go from him being the welterweight champion to the middleweight champion, even though it would have just made sense because it's like everybody moved up a weight basically. Instead that you got to say one welterweight or one atomweight division, or just talk about what the actual weight is.
But it has to be the most confusing aspect of anything they've done. That's the most common question I see about one championship is about their weight divisions.
Yeah, and it makes
followed by their weigh-in system.
And it makes it like hard because some of their atom weights, I think if they actually fought at atom weight, they'd be ranked in the worldwide rankings. But because they're fighting at 115,
You mean it's kind of like Rising doing 49 kilo instead of 48 kilo,
Mhm.
so it
Right.
messes up world rankings all around.
Just count it anyways. It's 2 pounds.
I mean, as I call it, Rena weight. It's like Rena can't quite make 108, but she can make 109.
Nah, she just doesn't want to.
And she's been fighting at 50 recently. She's been moved up even a little bit more.
Yeah,
She was hospitalized the one time. But
that is true. That is very true.
I do want to address this one. I don't think it's insecurity. I think it might be the Fairtex gym not wanting to do that because here, like all the Thai fighters fight with their gym name. So, and it's not like Fairtex has a gym in Singapore. I don't think they do. So it's not like Evolve would be worried about the competition.
I mean, I don't know. It would be one thing. Do they do this with the other? I mean, do they do this with the other Thai boxers on the
No.
roster? Because I feel like it might just be a thing where Stamp has she's branded herself as Stamp, not Stamp Fairtex.
Right.
I only ever hear people call her Stamp, so I think that might be more of it. But you might have something if other Thai fighters don't have their last names.
Muay Thai.
Oh,
I mean,
there you go.
Pet Morakot is Pet Yindi. Pet Morakot Pet Yindi. So he's from the Pet Yindi gym.
Sitchai, they also don't have his last name yet. So
Yes.
maybe you're onto something. Or maybe they understand that all of the last names are just gym names, so it's kind of weird just to slap them on there because it's not their fight names aren't even their actual names anyway.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's like Loma Lokbami's name. None of those are her names. So, yeah.
Like her, yeah. I mean, Lookboomy was her dad's fight name.
Yeah,
And it's
Loma
Lokbumi
means
Gym.
dolphin or something.
Yeah.
So, I remember when I had to translate Thai names from Japanese, and I will say it is an impossible task. So Thai language, man, I have a hard time with it. It's crazy, especially when they do these like weird gym combination names.
Yeah. Well, it's like the CH is silent, so you'd think it's Pech Morakot, but it's Pet Morakot or Semipet.
Well, it doesn't blend well with Japanese. I'll just go that far.
Okay, so I got.
Might be onto something. None of the Thai fighters have their last names.
Okay, so I've got 2 more. That's better. Okay, so 2 more questions because I know Charlie, you got to leave pretty soon.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
First up, how is 2022 looking compared to 2021 for WMMA in Asia?
Better. I mean, any hint of the pandemic ending will massively improve the women's MMA scene in Japan, because I mean, before the pandemic, Rising at least only had one fight between a Japanese fighter and a Japanese fighter. Rising's entire women's MMA angle is to have foreign fighters fight Japanese-based fighters, at least in the past. And when they can't do that, the number of fights dropped drastically. I'm talking like 5 fights a year. So if the pandemic ends, it'll be very good news for the Japanese MMA scene.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest factor. I mean, as it has been just in general since it started, right?
Yep.
The pandemic and all that. But it's very interesting because I look at even last year, and I think it was on one of the recent episodes of Broad Horizon I did, and we got a fan question that asked if Deep Jewels had passed up Invicta as the best female-only promotion in the world. And I was thinking, if you look at last year specifically, Invicta really, really dropped the ball after signing that Access TV deal, which I don't even know exactly what's going on with that anymore, because the next event isn't going to be on there.
Right.
Who knows what's going on with that exactly, but they were planning to ramp up the amount of cards. That did not happen. They did the opposite, and Deep Jewels continued on very strongly, and we've seen how impressive just their shows and fighters have ended up being since then. So I kind of said, yeah, I think at the moment, Deep Jewels certainly surpassed Invicta until they can get their shit back together. But if it continues to snowball in that direction, I think with the pandemic clearing up and all that, 2022 is just going to be better.
I think, what Drake's saying, Deep Jewels, Japan MMA wise, benefited the most from the pandemic. They've really prospered during the pandemic. They've become like a factory, and they've benefited from Rising success. I mean, a lot of these people watch Rising on TV, and now they're attracting women that have significant backgrounds, like Hanako Sawa and all of these judo fighters. Like, oh, there's a future in fighting. I can go do that. So, I mean, the level that Deep Jewels is producing now is very high level, a bunch of young fighters. And kind of go with Drake saying, I feel like Invicta FC kind of dropped the ball a while ago pre-pandemic, because there was a point in time where Invicta could claim they had the best fighters in the world, but I think that time is long past. Maybe the symbolic passing of the torch was when Ham Sohee knocked out Jinyu Frey at Road FC, and it was just like, Invicta FC is not looking too good these days. Their champions seem to be fighters that lost to the previous champion and didn't move up to the UFC. So,
yeah. Well, I think what hurt them the most is that because they were on Fight Pass, UFC basically uses Fight Pass as their scouting program. So then anytime they need a short notice fighter, at least in the women's, they were like, oh, Invicta has a new champion. Mine. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can only get so much of your talent poached immediately from when they become champion and still do well.
Yeah.
My whole thing was like, if I was Invicta, I would have just, they're poaching our strawweight fighters. I'm going to stop focusing on the strawweight division. Like, I should start focusing my marketing and branding materials on the atomweight division.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, Alicia came to Rising and lost to Kana Asakura. Jinyu Frey came to Road FC and got knocked out brutally by Jinyu Frey. Like, I think their mistake was in allowing a lot of their top stars to fight internationally, which is really cool for the fighters. Most of them lost. So it showed that they can't say they have the world champions when their world champions are getting beaten by people who aren't world champions themselves anymore.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, I would say 2022 is looking better. Road FC actually released a schedule for the year.
Thank God.
I mean,
I thought they were dead.
It's not
I thought they were dead. Like, they were really badly impacted by the pandemic.
Well, they were hurt before that because they lost Xiaomi as a sponsor. So Xiaomi wasn't dishing out those Chinese tech dollars anymore.
Yeah, and I remember Lee left. She works for the UFC now, and when she was working for Road FC, I mean, she did such a great job bringing in an amazing talent. I mean, when she was doing that, they had like Weili Zhang, they had Yao Zhang, was her name Yao? Who's the other really good Chinese fighter in the UFC?
Tan Xiaonan.
Yeah, they had her in there. I mean, they had Fujino. I mean, and they had Ham Sohee. Like, their division was stacked, and it just completely fell apart.
Yeah.
Like almost, it was like a jet getting shot out of the sky, how quickly it fell apart. But when it was at its top, Road FC was very good.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm happy to see them back because I'm tired of those like random promotions that start in Korea for like one fight, for like one promotion. Then you find out none of the fighters got paid. And
Right.
it's like it's just like
Battlefield.
Battleground or Battlefield, whatever it's called. So Road FC was stable, and I'm just glad to see him back.
Okay. Not going to get into this one because we're running out of time, but just a reminder, there is Pancrase coming up with an event, Strawweight Championship. Emi Fujino taking on the Karen, who is unfortunately named now thanks to popular culture.
Karen, come on, Emi Fujino is fighting a girl that just turned 18.
Incredible.
This is absolutely nuts, and I'm all about it. I mean, Emi Fujino is literally fighting someone in high school.
Yeah. So yeah, someone literally young enough to be her kid, like realistically.
Yeah, very
Several
true.
times over. Yeah. I mean,
Karen's formerly of Team Date. I love anything to do with Team Date. I'm not obsessed, but anything to do with Team Date, I will watch. Even if they getting the crap beat out of them, it's hilarious. But Karen's actually seems to be pretty good. So,
well, this will be either very telling or not, I guess, because obviously the experience difference is quite drastic here. But got to defend that belt.
Yeah. Karen's looked good. She's undefeated. She's got some strikes. I mean, she hasn't beaten the best talent, but she's beaten some people. And my thoughts on this, I mean, Emi Fujino's old. I love Emi Fujino, but she's old, and she is so beat up at this point. I mean, I think her leg's already jacked up from like a car accident or something. That's why she tapes it up so much. But I mean, there was a moment in the Aka Hamasaki fight where it looked like she just kind of fell over on herself.
Yeah,
because her legs are so jacked up at this point. So, I mean, if Karen can move and use her youth and athleticism, as long as Karen can keep Emi Fujino from grabbing her,
right.
if Fujino grabs her, she's going to take her down. And I don't know how good Team Pravjara's jiu-jitsu coach is, but I don't think it's going to be good enough. So if she can keep it standing and use her speed and agility to move and hit and strike, she has a chance to win. But I mean, how can you? The favorite has to be Fujino, right?
Right. I mean, it's just still insane to me how much punishment she absorbed against Hamasaki in that rematch and just kept on coming, you know. So
she's a tank, but Fujino also is very prone to cuts. Prone to cuts, and Japanese ring doctors are very into stopping fights for cuts.
I got to find a source for this one because that's interesting.
What, the Axis TV or that deal already fail? What's going on?
Looks like it.
What I mean, Drake, you know more about this. This isn't Asia related, but I mean, what's Alicia Zepatella said she wants to fight at strawweight now, and I mean, I've met her. She's absolutely tiny. How the hell is she going to fight at strawweight?
The first time I saw her, I was amazed at how tiny she was.
I think she's roughly the same size as Erica Tiburcio, who's one of the smallest people I've ever met.
Yeah, she's like.
And I hang out with Japanese fighters.
She's 4'11", I think. So she's like the same height as Saori Oshima.
Yeah, I mean, it's
just thicker and more muscular.
She's got some serious confidence. I'll give her that much. Yeah. But there's, I mean, I think that she honestly, her record should not be as good as it is. Like a recent stretch, there's plenty of fights I don't think she should have won or wasn't doing so well in. Got maybe not lucky necessarily, but pulled things out of, you know, pulled it out of her ass. But at strawweight, no, that would be it would not go very well for her. I think that's just very clear now. And I mean, if you just look at these Del Boni fights, Del Boni is a former strawweight too, so that's all the evidence you really need.
Okay, so final question. I don't have a source on this, but rumors are stirring again of UFC opening up the atomweight division.
They're always
big question
stirring.
Is it doable right now? Considering the current scene, you got fighters locked up in one championship, and you got the biggest atomweight division is over in Deep Jewels, and a lot of Japanese fighters are now focused on Ryzen and not the UFC. So how doable is UFC atomweight right now with all the fighters mixed up in Deep Jewels, Rise, and one championship.
I've always maintained that it's doable because, I mean, I never understood why they're obsessed with 155 when if they want to grow internationally, there's way more atom weights in the world than there are 155-pound fighters. Because, I mean, the fighters in Asia can be smaller anyway. If you're looking to make big in China or Japan or like that, atom weight's a great move. But you're going to run into problems because the best atom weight in the world, in my opinion, is either Ham Sohee or Ayaka Hamasaki. Ham Sohee is now locked into a one championship contract. Ayaka Hamasaki is in her early 40s and has already hinted that she's thinking of retiring. But she did have dreams of fighting in the UFC, which is why she went up to strawweight that one time in Invicta. Because I think she would do it if the option arose, but she might be too old at this point. But then you have fighters like, I interviewed Saudi Oshima, who's not really interested in fighting abroad. She's like, I have 2 kids. I can't leave my twins with my husband who also works. So, they can do it. There's tons of fighters.
Well, that's a big thing with a lot of the Japanese fighters. Japan historically has always been kind of insular. So a lot of them don't want to go abroad if they don't have to because they got it good in Japan. Unless the money's that tempting.
I might be biased, but they also get screwed over. They tend to lose close decisions. They get bad matchmaking. Shuri Kondo gets forced to fly 30 hours to Argentina. So they don't get treated very well. Also Kana Watanabe is getting paid a fortune over in Bellator. If I was them, I'd be more interested in Bellator. But can they start the atomweight division? Absolutely. They already have fighters in the UFC that could fight in that division. Michelle Watterson, make her drop down. Jessica Penne would be a monster at atomweight. Loma Lukbami should be an atomweight. They already have four or five fighters that would be a good top 5 to start a division with anyway. And I guarantee the UFC is obsessed with Michelle Watterson being champion. And I think she has a much better chance at atomweight of being champion than she ever does at strawweight.
Well, I think Drake will agree with me. UFC has such a control on the public narrative that no matter who ends up being champion there, they might have never even fought atomweight before, or they might be someone nobody's ever heard of. But the UFC is going to put their marketing machine behind, and no matter what the hardcore fans say, everyone is going to see.
Are they going to put their marketing with they have some champions they don't market at all.
Well, basically they're going to say this is the best atomweight in the world. She's the UFC champion. She's the best atomweight in the world. And the average fan is just going to say, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Because they did Nico Montano dirty. They didn't treat her like a champion at all.
No, she was a placeholder for Shevchenko.
For Valentina. So, they could do that, but I think women's MMA is already pretty niche, and they don't have that many. In my opinion, there's nothing casual women's MMA fans. People tend to be into it or not. And people will know that Ham Sohee exists, and people will know that. Angela Lee is technically an atomweight, I guess. They'll know that she exists. They'll know that Ayaka Hamasaki exists.
But the hardcore fans that actually talk about this, they don't move the needle for the UFC. So.
But they have several fighters that if they did win, you can make arguments that they are the best atomweight. If Michelle Watterson was the atomweight champion in Invicta FC and was a fairly dominant atomweight champion, and I think people forget Jessica Penne was a stud at atomweight. She was a jiu-jitsu wizard. I would love to see her back down there. And
her length, the way she used her legs.
Oh yeah,
grappling against other atomweights.
I think Loma Lukbami would be so much more dominant in the division. And then you bring over, if you can get Miki Matono or Saudi Oshima, you could get a pretty good division going. Mm-hmm. It'd be a perfect one for just do what they do at strawweight and just do another season at Tough and crown a champion.
All right.
But can they do Tough with international fighters? Does that work when half the fighters don't speak English?
Right. They did it with what's his face?
Ogakubo.
Ogakubo.
Yeah.
That was just him, though.
It would be funny. Part of me now thinks it'd be funny to have a Tough house where none of the fighters can actually speak to each other.
That's brilliant right there.
A bunch of women who don't speak the same language. Oh.
Or just have a separate dorm of translators. And so every time the translators are talking shit to each other too.
All right.
That has potential.
Ronda Rousey comes out of nowhere to show that cutting weight is 100% mental. Every other episode is just her in the sauna cutting weight with Manny Gimburian. That's what I want. That's what I want now.
This has been
that and the Shuto Watanabe Hikaru Alno Netflix show.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, it's been 2 hours and 5 minutes. So I'm going to let you guys go because I got stuff to do myself. But before we go, Drake, where can we find your work now?
Yeah, so everything is on MMA Mania. Go there, follow us on all platforms. And then I also do the morning report for MMA fighting 3 times a week. So if you want to get all your updates from the day before, the morning after, go check those out. But yeah, just nice 2 cozy homes now. And you can follow all my stuff at DrakeRiggs_ on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
I personally enjoy your Rising interviews you do.
Oh, yes. Thank you, sir. Broad Horizon. Check that out. Episode 13 just dropped with Clever Koike and Shizuka Sugiyama. So that is on MMA Mania as well. Check
who we
out.
Just talked about earlier.
Indeed. And I also spoke to Angela Lee recently. So it's
oh,
also
nice.
There. Yeah.
That's one thing I want to do this year is try to get more interviews. But I'm kind of.
Also, one championship's extremely accommodating if you want to interview people.
Yeah.
Charlie.
As much shit as I talk. You can find me at sogo-kaku.com. I do a podcast with Shu Hirata. He's a manager. It's bi-weekly. Talk about the Japanese MMA scene. Sometimes we talk about one championship as well. Going to be releasing some stuff for the upcoming Deep Jewels card. I'm trying to get some articles together, but yeah, it should be fun. I'm super excited for the Deep Jewels tournament, if you can't tell. And Deep Jewels has done a great job of uploading the content on YouTube. So if people aren't able to watch it on pay-per-view, they can always watch it on YouTube a couple of days later.
Yeah, definitely check out Charlie's podcast with Shu Hirata. Yeah. Shu is a manager with On the Road Fight Management and coaches a plethora of fighters from all over the world. Many of them are in the UFC now. I believe he manages current Invicta Atomweight champ. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, he's managed everybody. He's managed, like, past Hitomi Akano, Megumi Fuji, Aika Hamasaki, Mizuki Inoue. So, like, pretty much if they're from Japan, there's a very strong chance that Shu Hirata has been their manager at one point in time. He's got tons of hilarious stories. If somebody asked about King Rena's AV past, maybe they can get him to talk about some more crazy King Rena stuff that she's done. And, yeah, he's got tons of stories, all the good info.
Okay. And, of course, you know where to find me, WMMA Now on YouTube, at Now WMMA on Twitter. So, meantime, if you haven't yet, please like the stream so that it gets the algorithm going. Relevant links are listed in the description, and I'll put a link to Charlie and Drake's social media and whatnot. I forgot to edit that in beforehand, but I'll definitely go check them out. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to WMMA Now, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. And we'll see you next time, guys.